Welcome, everyone. What we are watching, episode 33. I am Joey Harris, joined as always by my co-host, TJ. How are you today, sir?
Scottie Pippen episode, baby. He was good too.
He was absolutely good. And I said this many years ago, a cable station left money on the table when they didn't bring out a reality show called Being Scottie Pippen.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes. That was spilled liquor, Joey. But hey, man.
That and another, I think it's Sci-Fi or whoever it was, had Celebrity Ghost Hunters. Never had Ray Parker Jr. on there. That's just left money on the table.
Because that right there would have been a show that we talked about for centuries to go on. But hey, it's good to be back. What we're watching, if you're watching the live, I mean, you clicked the button already, so thank you from my heart to yours.
As we are recording this, our last episode just dropped, so it's fresh on there. I'll be sharing it later on so that we can get it out on social media. We've gained another subscriber. Things are going good. I'm uploading old shows as I find them and as I get to them. Because my old shows, I can see when we were recording on Skype, I downloaded it just says video such and such. Well, I don't remember.
Right.
So I had to play it, and I'm like, all right, this is a Joey Harris show. This is, a wrestling show. This is, what we're watching. When I find them, we're slowly getting there, is what I'm saying. We're slowly.
We want you to have content. All that he is saying right now is stuff that he's doing for you.
That's right. Because it's better to give than receive. That's what
I'm a giver. That's what I'm a giver. I give you the shirt off my back. I don't mind showing my chocolate dots.
You've always had that philosophy, though. You're like, I'm a hugger and all of that. Yeah, I can see it.
It's energy, man. It's energy, bro. Like if I can give you some positive, man. Bro, because I never know what's going on in your life or in your day, right?
Right.
So you know me, man. I'll just shoot you a heart emoji. We don't have to have a whole conversation, man. It doesn't have to be a whole thing. If I'm thinking about you, I never know when I'm going to see you again. I take 2 seconds to send a heart emoji, let you know that you're being thought about. What did that cost me?
Nothing. Baseball, folks. Inside baseball, that heart emoji is going to be green. At least mine is. I don't know about all of them. Now,
all of them.
Sending somebody yellow heart emojis or red heart emojis, they're like, I never get the green, TJ. And then
all of them.
Now I've started a war. So I'm like, to me.
No, you have not started. They're always green. All of the hearts are green, man. Green is my favorite color. But still, to the point, if you have somebody in your life and they cross your mind, it takes you all of a second to send a text. You don't have to have a whole conversation, but you do not know what that text will do for that person in that moment because you don't know what they're going through. So heck yeah.
You're absolutely right. Now, let me ask you this before we dive into the what I call really the heart and start of the MCU, like
big facts
at the beginning. Do you feel like sometimes, though, because I feel this way, not about you. That's why I'm at. If I felt this way about you, I would not ask you this. But you and me, we're cool. You know that. You know that.
Right.
Do you feel sometimes that you're a better friend than your friends are to you? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I can't look at it that way.
Okay.
I can't, because what I recognize is I have control over 2 things. My behavior and how I allow other people's behavior to affect me. I can't judge you through the filter of my glasses to say, oh, I'm always texting Joey, or I'm always asking Joey to hang out, or I'm always, calling Joey when he's going through, but he never calls me when I'm going through. No, I'm not going to say that because, again, I haven't walked a day in your shoes. I don't know what you're going through. All I can do is put out my best self with the intention of saying, I want to show you love.
Right.
And I hope that you feel that love. If you never reciprocate, then it's up to me to decide if I want to stay in that situation. But I can't say to you, oh, you're not as good a friend as I am. That's not fair. Right. That's not fair. If I have a problem with the way that you show me love, then I need to get out of that situation. But if I'm just sitting there trying to rank based on what I do for you versus what you do for me, well, that's not a friendship.
Okay.
That's not, you know,
I
that
get that. I get that. I get that. It's just sometimes I appreciate what you just brought to the table because I needed to hear that because I had been feeling a lot of times I'm like, I feel like it's a one-way street. Like I never get the how are you feeling today? Again, this is not towards you, TJ, but
I feel it. I understand it.
and I'm like, and you go back and there's interactions, but it's all like always started by me. And you're right. I don't know what they're going through, but I'm like, hey, every once in a while, hey, I'm just thinking about you. It goes a long way.
Facts.
Like I'm throwing them a lot more than I'm getting them back. And sometimes I just get discouraged. But you're right. I don't know what other people are going
Well, I mean, and look, and again, when I speak, I'm speaking on what I'm going through or what's best for me. I never tell anybody else how they should live. That's not my bag.
through. Right.
But I, if at any point in time I would feel like if anybody is questioning a relationship, if it is a friendship that you believe in, then you should feel comfortable to have a conversation with that person to be like, hey, you know, this is how I'm feeling. And if it is a friendship and and it's built on trust and love, then that should be a conversation that y'all can be able to have without ruining anything. If things get ruined, then I go back to my original statement. Is it a relationship or were you just there to be a comfort for them? Because that happens sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes you're in somebody's life just to be a comfort for them. And then once they've met that level that they need to, with you as that comfort, they're on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just what you were meant to be in their life. And we just have to accept that. Yes, we are the star of our movie, but sometimes we're only meant to be a extra in somebody else's or a supporting actor for a season. But now they're on season 5 of The West Wing. They left me back in season 1. The show is great. I was a part of it, but I'm not in it like that. I'm not a running player. That's how people's lives are. Just can't get upset. Just keep living yours.
So you're saying they're Toby and you're Mandy. They left you
Big
back in
time
season
facts.
one. You
They
just
left me back in season 1. I was cute. I was good for the storyline. I brought a little drama and a little levity, but now I'm gone. I helped the foundation, and now they're still moving. And that's okay. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's okay. And I know we're completely off topic, but we get caught up in trying to keep things familiar. And unfortunately, it's not supposed to be that way all the time. We got to grow.
I feel like our 11 subscribers and anybody that just watches and hasn't subscribed yet, they're like, you all going off topic? When has that ever happened before?
Right. I was just, hey, this is how you know we are, again, great intentions, but we're not quite on topic. And I take full blame for that one. I'm the hippie of the group. This is the dynamic. You're straight laced. That's why they watch. They watch you because you're about business.
I don't know.
Now,
That's true.
you're funny as hell, but you're about business. And then TJ, he's a wild card. He's a joker, but he's got on a business suit and no underwear. So
So that's why they shoot him from the chest up.
that's why they shoot him from the chest up.
So, but we are back. We are deep. I don't know. Are we deep yet? I feel like if the MCU is like a pond or a lake, we've gotten wet. We're like up to our knees, and we're wading in, but we're slowly wading in. We're not diving in. We haven't jumped in. And it's like this week on our first episode, we're covering Endgame and beyond. And they're like, I'm not that invested yet.
I say at this point, knowing what we know about the end game, and about the MCU, and then the comment that you made earlier, I think that we've just been looking in the water, and now we're actually about to really take that first step in.
Okay.
Let's get into it, man.
Let's do it. Today we are talking about Iron Man. is a 2008 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Paramount Pictures. It's the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by Jon Favreau from a screenplay by the writing teams of Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby and Art Markham and Matt Holloway. The film stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man alongside Terrence Howard, Jeff Bridges, Gwyneth Paltrow, Leslie Bibb, and Sean Taub. In the film, following his escape from captivity by a terrorist group, world-famous industrialist and master engineer Stark builds a mechanized suit of armor and becomes the superhero Iron Man.
So, Joey, going into this, I have to let you know because I'm putting myself back in the mindset when this film came out.
Right. Okay.
I had no desires to see this movie in theaters, bro. Like, and we haven't talked about The Incredible Hulk yet, which came out prior to this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was in a little bit of burnout from the Spider-Man. You know,
I can understand that.
And the previous Hulk hadn't done well, so I'm like, I don't know what Marvel's got going on. Robert Downey Jr., last thing I saw him in was a Halle Berry movie. What are we doing right now? So I didn't know what to. I had no desire to see this in theaters. I'm just putting that out there.
And so I'm assuming the first time you saw it was on the DivDa.
It was in fact on the DivD. Okay. And then once I saw it on the DivD, I was like, dang, man, I could have saw this in theaters.
Well, let me tell you, when I was with my ex-wife, as I talked about last time, no shade to her. She's living a wonderful life and she's a wonderful person. I was just in my usual comedic self. Again, no shade. But when we were together then, and this was our deal. I'm like, we were just broke. I mean, just broke as a joke. But what we would do in May, when I got paid in May, we'd go to the Omni and we get that little booklet.
Yeah.
$20, 10 tickets. Okay.
Yep.
That was our summer entertainment budget. That was half of it. Right. That was about half of it right there. What did that mean? That means that for me and her to go, we could see 5 movies that summer.
Yep.
This was one of them, and The Incredible Hulk was another one that we watched. I remember that as clear as I can be. Thankfully, I did see this before I saw the Hulk, because I'm confused at the end of that. But we'll get there, folks. We'll get there.
Yes.
A film featuring Iron Man was in development at Universal Pictures, 20th Century Fox, and New Line Cinemas at various times since 1990, before Marvel Studios reacquired the rights in 2005. Marvel put the project in production as its first self-financed film, with Paramount Pictures distributing. Favreau signed on as director in April 2006 and faced opposition from Marvel while trying to cast Downey in the title role. The actor was signed in September. Filming took place from March to June 2007, primarily in California, to differentiate the film from numerous other superhero stories that are set in New York City.
Yep.
During filming, the actors were free to create their own dialogue because pre-production was focused on the story and action. I'm sorry about that. It was a automatic message from my work.
Mm-hmm.
Rubber and metal versions of the armor created by Stan Winston's company were mixed with computer-generated imagery to create title characters. So you got a mixture of things that they were going into.
Yep.
Iron Man premiered in Sydney on April the 14th, 2008, and was released in the United States on May 2nd as the first film of Phase 1 of the MCU. It grossed over $585 million, becoming the 8th highest grossing film of 2008, and received praise from critics, especially for Downey's performance, as well as Favreau's direction, the visual effects, action sequences, and writing. The American Film Institute selected it as one of the 10 best films of 2008. It received 2 nominations at the 81st Academy Awards for Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects. In 2022, the Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the United States National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. 2 sequels have been released: Iron Man 2 in 2010 and Iron Man 3 in 2013. So, initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts about the Iron Man. Like I said, had no desires to see it. I didn't really have a lot of thoughts about Robert Downey at the time because I wasn't as tapped in to the the gossip of it. I didn't know what kind of a problem he was dealing with or how bad it had gotten and that he was about to go to jail and all that stuff. I didn't know that. I mean,
Right.
same thing about Tim Allen. I didn't know that stuff about Tim Allen either. But and if you don't know, you should look it up. Tim Allen's a guy. But but no, so again, the MCU at this point is not solidified. But what I will say to you, and you can call me back on this one, Joe, if you need to make a note on it, how Robert Downey does in this film is why I was so adamant that he deserved Oscar consideration for Endgame.
Oh, 100%. I feel like starting with this, all of his performances in not only the Iron Mans, but also Civil War and Homecoming and Infinity War, like all of the cameos, everything else, it leads up to what happens in Endgame.
Yes.
With callbacks to even this film,
Yep.
everything right there. And when we get to Endgame, just the greatness and a bunch of stuff that we're going to drop there for you all. But yeah, he talks about his period right before this. He had gotten into, and folks, if you want to go down the path, you can look and see everything that he had done. But he had said that for his health, for his sobriety, and everything else, he had to get to the point where they said, you may never act again and you may lose it all. And he says, okay. And going to jail, he talks about going to jail. Now, did he do years of hard time? No, but he did go to jail, and he had to go through different things, and he talked about that. He said it changes you as a person. And then he does Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Singing Detective and all of that. Movies to primarily, one, I can still act. Two, I need to show a distributor and a movie studio that I can still be insured.
Yeah.
Trusted and
Yeah.
be able to get the insurance on it, because if they don't insure him and he flakes or something happens to him, that movie's out of that money. And it's the business of show. It's not show friends, it's show business.
Well, because
and we've talked about that before in podcasts and on different things. Yes, it's show business.
If you're looking, and obviously there's rumors coming out about who else was looked at the time, other hot actors in the early aughts you're talking about. I've always wanted to say that I've never actually called them the aughts, but it sounds pretty good coming out. So in that time, you're talking what, Tom Cruise? You've got I don't know, I think Ashton Kutcher is too young, but Ben Affleck is of the age, and Matt Damon. I just, again, had to say it like that. But I think now that we've seen the aftermath, Robert Downey was the perfect guy for the role because he is Iron Man now. You would have to wait 50 years easily before you could try and do a reboot. But because of what the MCU has meant so much culturally, and you even said Iron Man being led into the Library of Congress, that's a big deal.
Right. And folks, this is what you have to realize, okay? And it talks about that this character had been optioned and all that since 1990. Let's talk about all of this. in the 60s, there were all of these little cartoons about Marvel characters, Spider-Man and Iron Man and Hulk and all of that. Then in the late 60s, you get the Batman TV series. All right, that goes 3 years. Then in the 70s, you get the Super Friends and all of that, and they do another like live action Spider-Man TV show. It wasn't that well received. They did a Captain America film that wasn't that well received. There's a infamous 1994 Fantastic Four movie that was just made and it's horrible, but it's only made so that they can keep the copyright on it. And they're you know, it's, you got to make something or you lose your rights to make the film. And they're like, okay, we can do that. Nobody ever has to see it. But what happens on the other side? You have the Incredible Hulk TV show, but that went off in 82 or 83. I forget, one of those two. It's been a while. Right. But then you reach 1989, the Batman movie. Batman 89 makes a huge amount of money. And Marvel says, hey, wait, we're getting left behind because they're fast tracking a sequel. And that will come out and we will even be further behind. What follows that? It's not a comic book, it's a comic strip. Dick Tracy comes out in 1990. And so you get all of these other film studios that say, hey, wait, that made money. We got to get in on this. Now, Warner Brothers has DC and all of that. So that's when you talk about your Foxes and your Paramount, your Universal and all of that getting in on the act. And I heard like all throughout the 90s, Tom Cruise is going to make an Iron Man film. And then it's like, oh, you might get Iron Man. If it does well, a couple of years later, you might get Iron Man 2. And by that point, you're getting the franchise of the like, you know, what they call the Burtonverse, even though Tim Burton left after the second one. So did Michael Keaton, yada, yada, yada. We don't have to get into that. But you have to remember something. Nobody remembers that 1990 Captain America film. It was straight to video or on cable or what have you. They remember the Batman stuff. Nobody was supposed to see the horrible Fantastic Four movie and all that. And they're like, well, if I were to say to you in 1990, hey, little boy, come here, because you were what, 6 at the time, 7?
7.
Come here, and I say, here's a bunch of Marvel characters. Which one would you like to see movies about? You'd probably pick Spider-Man or the X-Men or maybe the Fantastic Four and all of that. Iron Man may have been on there, but he probably would not have been number one.
No.
Now, as we're getting into the late 90s, props to Wesley Snipes, because Blade was number one that comes out there. But at the same time, gun to most people's heads, you wouldn't have known he was a Marvel character unless you saw the Marvel thing at the beginning. You're like, hey, you want to see that Wesley Snipes Vampire Hunter movie, which is what my ex-girlfriend said to me at the time. We had broken up, but I had still made plans to come and visit her. She lived in Tennessee at the time. So we're at her parents' house just chilling. And about halfway reconnected very shortly. Different story, but that's what it was. Hey, do you want to see that Wesley Snipes vampire movie? Sure. And so we watched Blade.
Right.
Again, as I'm leaving the next day to drive back home, if you're like, how was that Wesley Snipes vampire movie? And then as I'm driving along, you said, hey, you remember that was a Marvel film? Oh, yeah, that was a Marvel film. They made 3 of them. I'm still couldn't have probably told you that it was a Marvel film. What happens 2 years later? You get the 20th Century Fox X-Men movie. What happens 2 years after that? You get the Sony Pictures Spider-Man film. So by this point, we've had 3 X-Men's. By this point, we've had 3 Spider-Men. And now they're like, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, and by the way, it's our own Marvel Studios movie. Cool. So we've done 25 minutes of a lot of exposition. Let's get into the
Yes,
plot.
sir.
Tony Stark, who has inherited the defense contractor Stark Industries from his late father Howard Stark, tours a war-torn Afghanistan with his best friend and military liaison James Rhodes to demonstrate the new Jericho missile. After the demonstration, his convoy is ambushed by a terrorist group, the Ten Rings, and Stark is gravely wounded by a missile used by the attackers, one of his company's own. He is captured and imprisoned in a cave by the Ten Rings. Yinsen, a fellow captive and doctor, implants an electromagnetic into Stark's chest to keep the shrapnel shards that wounded him from reaching his heart and killing him. Ten Rings leader Raza offers Stark freedom in exchange for building a Jericho missile for the group, but he and Yinsen believe that Raza will not keep his word. Stark and Yinsen secretly build a small, powerful electric generator called an arc reactor to power Stark's electromagnet and construct a prototype armored suit to aid in their escape. Although they keep the suit hidden, the Ten Rings discover their intentions and attack the workshop. Yinsen sacrifices himself to divert them while the suit powers up. The armored Stark battles his way out of the cave to find the dying Yinsen, then burns the Ten Rings' weapons and flies away, crashing in the desert and destroying the suit.
So if you know anything about the comic, it was a prototype suit that took him out, right? Like, yeah. So this is obviously reminiscent to that, but I think when you see the relationship he develops with Yinsen in the first quarter of the film, and then to have that moment when Yinsen has sacrificed himself, or we're believing that he's sacrificing himself exclusively for Tony, when in actuality his family had already been killed. He really had nothing in his mind to live for anyway. So him getting the opportunity to go out and see this man say, I guess go forward and continue to be able to try and change his legacy, that was his ultimate sacrifice right there. And that was his way of going out. So this let me know, hey, we're watching something different now. Right. We're really getting into the vulnerability. This just isn't the Man of Steel, nothing can penetrate me. No, our characters are fallible. So this is one of the things I'm giving Marvel love for.
Absolutely. And you realize that's kind of, I took it as that was Yinsen's kind of plan all along. Listen,
oh yeah,
the odds are not good that I'm going to get out, even if everything goes well. And he's like, I know these people. That's like, we don't expect him to keep his word. So he's really not, I look at it as he told Tony the truth. I get to see my family again. And this is how, by sacrificing myself. And he tells Tony about, going out and having the life and all of that, which I think Tony kind of keeps with him for the rest of the time that he's in the MCU.
Yep.
After being rescued by Rhodes, Stark returns home and announces that his company will cease manufacturing weapons. Obadiah Stane, his father's old partner and the company's manager, advises Stark that this will bankrupt Stark Industries and ruin his father's legacy. In his home workshop, Stark builds a sleeker, more powerful version of his improvised armor suit, as well as a more powerful arc reactor for it in his chest after testing the prototype. Personal assistant Pepper Potts places the original reactor inside a small glass showcase. Though Stane requests details of suspicious Stark, decides to keep his work to himself. Tony Stark is a lot of things, but he is not a fool.
No, not at all.
At a charity event, reporter Christine Everhart informed Stark that his company's weapons were recently delivered to the Ten Rings and are being used to attack Yinsen's home village. Stark dons his new armor and flies to Afghanistan, where he fends off the terrorists and saves the villagers. While flying home, Stark is intercepted by the Air Force. But I will say this is the shot, if you are familiar with the Lonely Island Boys. Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Big facts.
They just walk away.
They just walk away.
He reveals his secret identity to Rhodes over the phone in an attempt to end the attack. Meanwhile, the Ten Rings gather the pieces of Stark's prototype suit and meet with Stain, who has been trafficking arms to the Ten Rings and has staged a coup to replace Stark as Stark Industries CEO by hiring the Ten Rings to kill him. He subdues Raza and has him and the rest of the group killed. Stain has a massive new armor suit reverse engineered from the wreckage. Seeking to track his company's illegal shipments, Stark sends Potts to hack into its database. She discovers that Stain hired the Ten Rings to kill Stark, but the group reneged when they realized they had a direct route to Stark's weapons. In other words, they cut out the middleman. It's cheaper that way.
Yep. Definitely cheaper that way. That's how Walmart got big.
Yeah. They went up to the factory and picked it out themselves.
That's it.
Potts meets with Agent Phil Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D., an intelligence agency, to inform him of Stain's activities, although they were kind of like workshopping what they called themselves the entire time.
Strategic Homeland and Intelligence. Yeah.
And she's like, the strategic. Now, I will say this. It says Stain scientists are unable to duplicate Stark's miniaturized arc reactor. And so he's screaming at them. He did this in a cave.
With a box of scraps!
But big time shout out, if you caught him, to the scientist, one of the scientists here.
Yes.
Is Peter Billingsley, one of the producers of this film, by the way.
Yes.
Who played Ralphie in A Christmas Story. He and Downey and Favreau go way back. And so I just wanted to give a shout out. And also shout outs to Jeff Bridges for biting into that sentence and wrenching every ounce of it out of that.
Again, let's give flowers. And if I don't know if Jeff is, I think Jeff is still. Is Jeff still with us? Jeff is still with us, right?
Jeff's still with us.
Okay, Jeff's still with us. And if he's not, let's just get Chris Hemsworth a little bit big, and he looks like him in the Big Lebowski. But nonetheless, like that line that's the best way that line could have been delivered. I cannot think of any other note that I could give an actor to say, give me something in this line right here. Tony did it in a cave with a box of scraps. Like, perfect.
Now I'm gonna blow your mind on something I read last week when we get to the end of the plot. So remind me to bring it back. So they're unable to duplicate the arc reactor, so Stain enters Stark's home and steals the one from his chest. Stark manages to replace it with his original reactor. Potts and several S.H.I.E.L.D. agents attempt to arrest Stain, but he dons his suit and overpowers them. Stark fights Stain, but is outmatched without his new reactor to run his suit at full capacity. This is my favorite part. This is my favorite part of the movie. The fight carries Stark and Stain to the top of the Stark Industries building, where Stark instructs Potts to overload the arc reactor powering the building. This unleashes a massive electrical surge that causes Stain to fall into the reactor and is killed in the explosion. But my favorite part is when he takes him up to the top and he's like, how did you guys overcome the
icing problem?
The icing problem.
The what icing problem? Kink.
Yeah. The next day at a press conference, Stark publicly admits to being the superhero the press has dubbed Iron Man. You know what? I am Iron Man. And they all stand up and we go to our credits.
Yes.
In a post-credit scene, S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury visits Stark at home, telling him that he has become part of a bigger universe and that he wants to discuss the Avenger Initiative. So that is what we called world building, folks, and also leaving you with something that like, okay, here. So the thing that I wanted to tell you that I read last week is they were talking about, now that we've gone bigger with that, we've moved beyond, we're going into multiverses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They asked Jeff Daniels about Obadiah Stane and was there ever a chance that he could make a comeback? And he says in his script for the original film, they just find a suit in the arc reactor and they don't find him. And he says, unless you ever see a dead body, he's always ready to return to that role.
So it's weird that you would bring that up because I was watching another channel, and I'm always gonna show love to other channels because I want to show love. This isn't a competition. There's enough sun for all of us.
Absolutely.
New Rock Stars is out there, and they were having a conversation when they were talking about Multiverse of Madness, and obviously we'll get to that film later. But they were talking about possible cameos, and the question was raised. We never saw Obadiah's body. Right. Same thing with another character that we saw in an earlier film that we've already discussed, so I don't mind bringing it up. Red Skull.
Right.
So so you're saying there's a chance. There's always a chance, especially when you're dealing with the multiverse, because a multiverse, folks, we're going to get to it. But I mean, essentially, it's another timeline with another version of you. So there are other Obadiah Staines. And if you want to get just a little bit deeper with the Easter eggs, Obadiah Stane is a distant relative of one Oliver Stane, a crazy painter from a movie called Art Crawl. All right, now let's go.
And folks, what they are starting to do here is give you little strands, okay?
Yes.
And what you do with those strands is you take a little piece of grit, a little piece of pocket sand, one piece of pocket sand, and you start to work it around. And maybe at first it doesn't hold, but after a while it'll hold, and you can start building on that. And pretty soon you got a little bit of all, and then it builds. And they are still building it now, folks. This is no spoilers here, but they are still building on stuff that we're discussing now in a show called Agatha All Along.
Yes. So, and just to go and say that they're building, right? I don't think at this point we really knew what the MCU was going to be, because if you watch a deleted scene from that post-credit scene with Nick Fury and Tony Stark at his house, Nick Fury is mentioning Spider-Man. He's mentioning the X-Men in that conversation, not knowing what they were going to have the rights or access to. So just think, because now Disney is king. Disney owns everything that they want, except for, they've got relationships with Sony, and obviously DC is its own thing. But, for the most part, that mouse owns everything else. But just think about what the MCU would look like if Disney was in this position with Marvel at that time, because I don't think that the Infinity Saga would look the same if Disney had access to 20th Century's X-Men at that time. I don't think it would look the same. So I think everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. But again, just based on that post-credit scene, we're able to see Marvel really didn't know what was coming, but they were covering all their bases.
Absolutely, and we'll build more. Just think of that piece of pocket sand. We've looped the piece of string around it, and we're just going to leave it over there in the corner. We're going to come back to it. And we're going to keep building on it, folks. And when we get to Endgame, so far down the thing, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, no, that's just the beginning. All right, because then we're going to take a ball and we're going to start wrapping tinfoil around it, and it's going to be a tinfoil ball. Okay. And pretty soon, I'm going to need a bigger room, because this ball is going to be.
It's massive. I am Iron Man. I mean, let's take a look, if we can, really quickly at that line. It's like the whole point of a superhero is to have a secret identity. Up until this point, Up until this point, all of our superheroes. And again, mind you, X-Men is different. We're going to say X-Men is an outlier because they're mutants, and some of them, but you got Batman, you got, Spider-Man, everybody's got a secret identity. So Iron Man is now the first person that's going to stand up at the podium and say, I am Iron Man. And I made the comment earlier that the way that Robert Downey played Tony Stark so convincingly to where I was legitimately screaming Oscar love at Endgame is this character that he's created. He is Tony Stark. Like I can't see anyone else as playing Tony Stark to the point now to where if Marvel is going to have animated Tony Stark, he has to look like Robert Downey.
Right.
You know, it's like that's just you talk about being pigeonholed in a role or something like that. Daniel Radcliffe was worried about being locked into the wizardy stuff, you know, after doing Harry Potter.
Right.
You know, Robert Downey again is Tony Stark. So I'm saying, is this the best Marvel movie? It's not. We will discuss other Marvel films that I think are better, you know, overall than Iron Man. But if you're talking about a movie as being pivotal for a foundation, like a real linchpin for a franchise and for a saga that's getting ready to come, a multiverse chapter, love it, love it. So great stuff, man. Great stuff. And I enjoyed this film, bro.
Me too. Me too. And I've talked with you about this before, TJ, and I'm going to share it with the audience. Several years ago, I go on YouTube. I would go on YouTube in the morning when I was living in Maine. I'd go over to the dining hall, eat some breakfast, throw on some YouTube clips while I'm eating my breakfast. Right. I come across one from Steve Harvey where he says, "Go make a list of about 300 things that you want, and just throw
Right.
anything on there." And he said, "You're going to get stuck," and I did several times. I didn't make it to 300, but I'm like, I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
But one of the things on there is I would like to meet Robert Downey Jr. You know, person to person, and just talk about everything that he has done, not only with this, but primarily with this role. But I also just admire him as a person that just lost everything, and it's like, I'm willing to do it for something bigger, but then is able to come back. And because of that, he gets this. He gets the Sherlock Holmes movies. He gets pretty much anything that he wants where we talk about, hey, back the truck up. And we've talked about that several times over podcasts and YouTube and everything, and just big time, just appreciation and love. But let's talk about a little bit about the further backstory about this and where they go from here. In November 2005, Marvel Studios worked to start development from scratch and announced Iron Man as their first independent feature, because the character was their only major one not already depicted in live action. Paramount Pictures was announced as Marvel's distribution partner for Iron Man. According to associate producer Jeremy Latcham, "We went after about 30 writers and they all passed, saying they were uninterested in the project due to both the relative obscurity of the character and the fact that it was solely a Marvel production. When the film did have a script, even the request for rewrites met with many refusals." Early, to your point, early scripts for the film also directly referenced Sony's Spider-Man's 2 by identifying Stark as the creator of Otto Octavius' bionic arms, in order to build the general public's awareness of Iron Man and elevate him to the same level of popularity as Spider-Man or Hulk. Marvel conducted focus groups trying to find a way to remove the general perception that the character is a robot. The information Marvel received from the focus groups was used to formulate an awareness building plan, which included releasing 3 animated short films ahead of the film's release. The shorts were called Iron Man Advertorials and were produced by Tim Miller and Blur Studios. Jon Favreau was hired to direct the film in April 2006, celebrating getting the job by going on a diet and losing 70 pounds. Favreau wanted to work with Marvel producer Avi Arad on another film after they both worked on Daredevil. The director found the opportunity to create politically ambitious ultimate spy movie in Iron Man, citing inspiration from Tom Clancy, James Bond, and RoboCop, and compared his approach to an independent film. If Robert Altman had directed Superman and Batman Begins, Favreau wanted to make Iron Man as a story of an adult man literally reinventing himself after discovering the world is far more complex than he originally believed. He changed the Vietnam War origin of the character to Afghanistan, as he did not want to do a period piece. He did not want to set this in the late 60s or early 70s. Favreau planned to cast a newcomer in the title role, as those movies don't require an expensive star. Iron Man's the star. The superhero is the star. The success of X-Men and Spider-Man without being star-driven pieces reassures executives that the film does have an upside commercially. Those considered for the role included Jim Caviezel, Timothy Olyphant, and Sam Rockwell. Rockwell was approached and was interested, but Favreau then met with Robert Downey Jr., who he was convinced was the right actor for the role. Favreau chose Downey, a fan of the comic, because he felt the actor's past made him the appropriate choice for the part, explaining the best and worst moment of Robert's life have been in the public eye. He had to find an inner balance to overcome obstacles that went far beyond his career. That's Tony Stark. Favreau faced opposition from Marvel Entertainment executives in casting Downey, but would not take no for an answer, saying, "It was my job as a director to show that it was the best choice creatively. Everybody knew he was talented, and certainly by studying the Iron Man role and developing that script, I realized that the character seemed to line up with Robert in all the good and bad ways." Casting director Sarah Haley Finn suggested Downey create an audition tape to help persuade them. The executives were still not convinced, despite Favreau and Kevin Feige recommending Downey for the role, which resulted in Favreau leaking the news that Downey was in talks to the press. The positive reaction and enthusiasm to the story helped convince the executives. With Downey cast in the role in September 2006, Rockwell would later portray Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2. Downey earned $500,000 for the role. The crew conceived a post-credits scene featuring Nick Fury and called Samuel L. Jackson to ask him if he would be interested in playing Fury, as Jackson had learned a few years earlier that his likeness had been used for Fury in the Ultimate Marvel Comics imprint. However, according to Latchman, Jackson originally appeared without any deal for him to reappear in later films. It was just this weird idea that maybe people give us shit if we stick it on at the end. The dialogue for the scene was also changed on set, with comic writer Brian Michael Bendis providing 3 pages of dialogue for the part, and the filmmakers choosing the best line for filming on set. It was filmed with a skeleton crew in order to keep the cameo a secret, but rumors appeared on the internet only days later. Feige subsequently had the scene removed from all preview prints to maintain the surprise and keep fans guessing.
And this is the first post-credit scene.
Yeah. Iron Man earned $319 million in the United States and Canada and $266.8 million in other territories for a worldwide gross of $585.8 million. The review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 94% with an average score of 7.7 out of 10 based on 282 reviews. The website's critical consensus read, "Powered by Robert Downey Jr.'s vibrant charm, Iron Man turbocharges the superhero genre with a deft intelligence, an infectious sense of fun." On Metacritic, the film has an average score of 79 out of 100 based on 38 critics, indicating general favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale. Roger Ebert and Richard Corliss named Iron Man as among their favorite films of 2008. It was selected by the American Film Institute as one of the 10 best films of the year and by Empire Magazine as one of the 500 greatest movies of all time.
Nice.
Tony Stark was also selected by Empire as one of the 100 greatest movie characters of all time. And on their list of 100 greatest fictional characters, Fandomania.com ranked him at number 37. The Library of Congress selected Iron Man to be added to the National Film Registry in 2022. Responding to the selection, Feige stated its inclusion on the film registry meant the film has stood the test of time and that it is still meaningful to audiences around the world.
Facts.
Big time facts. That's my
big time. Yes.
My friend and brother says all the time. So,
all the time. Yes.
TJ, if I were to say to you, hey, you're in a room, I've just shown you Captain America, the first Avenger, the Captain, the Agent Carter one-shot, Captain Marvel, and now Iron Man, what would you think would come next? What would you be excited for?
We got to go to space, man. We would have to go to space because I'm like, I mean, now mind you, I'm going out of order. Right. But I'm just answering the question as you presented it to me. What would I be excited for? I would be excited to go to space because I've seen Captain America and Red Skull holding the Tesseract. That
Right.
is Alien. I've seen in Captain Marvel, she was in space.
And at the
Like,
end, you're like, hey, that looks like Captain America, and there's some other people around him. So
right,
I know other superheroes are there, and now you have Nick Fury showing up. And after we've established Shield, he's like, just call us Shield, Agent Coulson. Um, then you have Nick Fury showing up, and you're like, all right, there's an Avengers initiative. I need to know what's
right.
next.
So,
So,
yeah, if it's me, I'm saying I want to go to space, but that's just me.
all right, so let's talk about what's next, folks. We're taking a small break. We're not going anywhere. We will be back with a video, but we're not going to be covering any specific things. Instead, we're going to be making our list and sharing our top scariest films or series, or however we want to do it, for the Halloween season. Because as we record this, we've officially made it to October.
Woo!
And before we get to the horror that will be the election day, before that, we got to get to Halloween. Because, folks, let's be honest, don't work yourself into a tizzy, but it's going to be a horror show. Because whoever wins, somebody's going to be upset. Because that's just the way things are.
That's the way things go. Um, and just to give you some behind the scenes stuff, TJ has been a real big advocate for lists. You know, it's like behind the scenes, Joey and I are talking, hey, what are we going to do next? What are we going to watch next? And TJ stands on his soapbox with his pitchfork and says, we want lists.
You should
So,
see his bucket list. He's got the blue,
yes.
the big grape, the yellow one. Shouts out! Oh my goodness, his name just left me. A guy I used to do comedy with. That was his joke. So shouts out to him. I did not. There was no intention of me saying it was mine. That was his joke about bucket list. But
So,
you
yeah.
you do love a good list.
I
So
love a good list, and I felt like our fans would appreciate a good list. So we are again getting ready to rank top 5 horror movies for that holiday season, and we're encouraged to see you all clicking that button down there, subscribing, sharing, because I think we all have a list, and I want to see which one of you's list is closest to mine, because that means we're kindred spirits. And I'm down to have a
absolutely.
glass of coffee with you. I don't even drink coffee, but I'll drink some coffee with you if you agree with my list. And then you have to ask yourself, is that really TJ? TJ ain't drinking no coffee.
But if you go to the right Waffle House, they'll say, "Hey, talk to me." Doesn't that guy belong in a horror film? He
The
sounds
guy
like the
belongs
guy.
in he belongs in a horror movie. You're the guy who calls and says, I'm in the house.
Have you checked the children? But then after that, we'll get back to continuing our coverage on the first season of Community, as well
Yes.
as what's next for the MCU. Well, chronologically, which is the way that we're going, it is Iron Man 2. So we're going to stay with Tony Stark
All right.
and do some Iron Man 2. But other things that are coming up, or we've got a series of some one-shots that we're going to be sprinkling in there in between films, as well as the Incredible Hulk. We've got Thor
Yep.
so those will be coming up, as well as the first Avengers movie. But
So if y'all want to know where TJ's head is getting ready to go into Iron Man 2, Mickey Rourke just kind of had his resurgence into the public eye at this time, getting either a nomination or an actual win for The Wrestler. And
he at least got nominated. I don't know.
I know he got nominated. I don't know if he won, but I thought that he did. I just cannot quite remember who else was up. But even if he didn't win as a performer, the movie itself won awards. So knowing that we're getting some Mickey Rourke coming into Iron Man 2, I was really excited to see what he was going to bring to it. And then, I look forward to us getting into, again, this film, because some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes into it, like with regards to his character's makeup, the gold teeth, like some of the tattoos that he has, all that stuff, we're going to chop it up when we talk Iron Man 2, and I look forward to it. So this is what we're watching now. Hit that subscribe.
Absolutely, you got to hit the subscribe button, because our personal goal that we have set is for the end of 2024, we want to be at 20 subscribers.
Yes.
We, as of recording this, are currently at 11. We picked up a subscriber over the weekend, so shout out. But we really want to get to that 20 subscribers, because that gets us closer to 50, and then we can start going live. And that's when
what you want.
That's when you get the big bucks.
Yes, that's when the requests come in. And
we talked about the requests last time. That is when they come in.
Good time.
All right. So I am looking.
Well, while he's looking, if you've already subscribed, thank you. If you haven't, you should. If you have subscribed and your significant other hasn't, get them on board too. Why? Because the relationship that gets content together stays together. If you at one point in time used to get content with your significant other and you no longer are together, I'm just TJ. You can't take my words as facts. Keep on shining.
You almost said that like, I am TJ. I am not trustworthy. Have a great day.
All right. You can't take my words as facts. Let's go.
So he did get an Oscar nomination as Best Actor. He lost the Oscar to Sean Penn, while Penn did acknowledge Rourke in his acceptance speech.
Awesome. Because the wrestler was good. I saw that. I thought that was a good film.
I saw that. This is the thing. I saw that with like on 3 different dates. Like when I was with my first wife, we like had a date night at home. Let's watch the wrestler.
Okay.
Then after we split up, I was out with another girl, and she's like, "Hey, I just bought these bunch of DVDs. Let's watch the wrestler." Okay.
Watch the wrestler.
Then dating another girl. Hey, I just bought these DVDs. Let's watch the wrestler.
So you have an opinion on this movie?
I do. I can tell you, I get into it. And they're like, every single one of them, that was a really good movie. After I'm like, yes, it really is. How about that Marissa Tomei? So,
right.
You know, someone who will come up later on in the MCU.
Big facts. A very attractive Aunt May. So thank you all for listening and tuning in to the Scottie Pippen episode. That man's good too.
That man is good.
I feel like I have to say it every time. Good.
He should have had a cameo in an MCU film. Hey, if they're still doing pickups on Thunderbolts, stick Scotty in there in the credits.
And that's what I was about to say, man. The Thunderbolts is a ragamuffin crew that doesn't always get respect. That's Scottie Pippen to the T. A ragamuffin.
Have him be like a prison guard or something like that.
Simple. Not a whole lot of lines. He just got to know how to turn a key. And then his badge number would be 33.
Right.
We just wrote it for you, Favreau.
And then like all of the Thunderbolts characters, they break out and they run him over, and he says, "I don't get paid enough for this." And they cut to the next scene. That's a wrap on Scotty. Thank you, Scotty. We really
thank you, Scotty.
Scotty up and they're dusting him off. Mr.
Good job, Scotty. So, hey, somebody get him a gift bag on the way out, man. Hey, Scotty, man, enjoy that gift bag, baby. Look, if you've never been on set, that's how they talk to you now.
Mr. Pippen, I really enjoyed NBA jams. You were indeed on fire.
On fire. I love it.
That's going back there. You talking about it NBA?
Yes, you took it back for sure. And to anyone who does not know about the NBA jams, YouTube it, man. It's there. That's a classic.
Fire.
He's on. Boom shakalaka.
You put in their code. You put in those code where they get the really big heads.
The really big head. Yo, did you know President Clinton was on that game, bro?
Absolutely, I knew that.
Yes. Taking it back, man. I used to play with the mascot heads all the time, bro.
Oh yeah.
Because I was a big fan of Hugo,
Hornet.
growing up where we did. Yeah.
Hornet. Hey man, I had that denim hat and that big Charlotte Hornets coat that everybody had.
Everybody had. I was a big fan of Grandmama at the time. Talk about dating myself.
Oh man.
I used to eat Elster's cookies all the time, bro. I think somebody in my community must have been the business idea behind Elster's cookies, because when they failed, they flooded our neighborhood, bro. Everybody had Elster's cookies, man. We had stacks on stacks of Elster's cookies, and I ate them. I ate those things. It wasn't nothing but Famous Amos, just a little bit cheaper.
You can't mess with money. You can't hide money. It's really
Jesus. Awesome.
All right. But thank you all so much. We will see you next time. We will have those horror movie lists. So get prepared with yours. We will see you next time.
Do you want to play a game?